Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy. I'm Mirta D'Argenzio, and I'm an art historian, and I'm very happy and proud this evening to celebrate with you an exceptional book launch, which is the book launch of the Catalogue Raisonne of the drawings of Fontana. We choose and we decided to close this edition of Art Basel 2014 with this celebration. As you know, art history today is Lucio Fontana in many different senses. And we will have the opportunity, and I would like to thank, first of all, our speakers, Choghakate Kazarian, who is the co-curator of the Fontana Exhibition now at the Musée d'Art Moderne de la Ville de Paris. She came here just to discuss with us different aspects of the Catalogue Raisonne in relation with the exhibition. And Luca Massimo Barbero, who is the editor of the Catalogue Raisonne itself, which was a massive, massive impresa, as we said in Italian. And he will speak of the Catalogue Raisonne in relation to the exhibition as well. So I would like to thank also very much the Fondazione Fontana, who made possible to realize this incredible scientific instrument, but also a very, very important book after many, many years of collaboration, and in the person of Ninier De Magni Laurini, and obviously also the Professor Enrico Crispolti, that was the author of the Catalogue Raisonne of the paintings, is ideally with us today. So we will go and we will start with Choghakate immediately in order to get also maybe question from you afterwards. So Choghakate, I would like to ask you to start with, as this beautiful Catalogue Raisonne in 3 volumes came in a little bit after or during the preparation of the show, what was particularly interesting for you?
Well, thank you, Mirta, for organizing this talk. I think my first impression when I saw the Catalogue Raisonne was at the last months of the preparation of the show. And first thing is congratulations to Luca Massimo Barbero. And I'm happy to see that you survived to it because, I mean...
No, sure.
Yeah, but that's because I've been working on the retrospective for more than 2 years, and I thought that I almost died with it. And there were only like 210 works, but in your Catalogue Raisonne, it's like some more zeros. How many exactly?
5,700.
Okay, so he survived it.
Yours was a 2 years life with Lucio Fontana. Mine was 6 years and a half life with Lucio Fontana. So.
Oh, don't try on that, Phil. I mean,
and it's a wonderful thing. I mean, I think it's like it was an incredible task. But I think that, as you know, you never stop to get involved in and with Lucio Fontana's work, and I'm sure
he's very charming.
Yeah.
I know. So, and I guess it was an amazing job because just doing this Catalogue Raisonne, it's a huge work, and I was happy to see, well, the classification of the works because it's a huge projection, and I faced it during the show because, I mean, Fontana's production is very complicated to understand for a larger audience, and I think that explains why it took some time for people and also art history to understand his production, because there are several styles at the same time, like figuration, abstraction, and I think that thing, Luca Massimo succeeded well because he showed by his classification the synchrony of different styles. Maybe you can talk about that, I think.
Also, another thing I wanted to, I mean, for one of you who still didn't see the exhibition, this Fontana exhibition is the largest that was ever made, and is very well organized in order to present visually all different stages on Fontana's works from the very beginning. Obviously, all different medium and media utilize that Fontana used during his very, very long career are presented, and also some drawings. I was particularly taken my attention some drawing on this about the spazialismo that were presented in the exhibition, which are something that I would like Choghakate to explain, because Fontana use of the drawing, and this is something that is extremely interesting to look at through the Catalogue Raisonne, was extremely different. So let's start from this one that you presented in your exhibition, maybe.
It's very interesting because, I mean, the place of the drawings in Fontana's career is quite important because, as we know, the first spatial ideas came in drawings in 1946 while he was still in Argentina. And in the same way, the first holes and cuts are done on this paper, what we call carta telata, which is paper glued on canvas. And also this idea of environments, he developed it, of course, in space with his first environment in 1949 at Galleria del Naviglio, but also in drawings. This is something also maybe Luca Massimo can explain, and because it's something I'm still wondering and haven't understood. While these drawings are, I don't clearly understand if they are actually preparation studios of real environments, or are they environments in themselves?
Yes.
I think there's two things that I really appreciate about your show, and which is, I think the first, maybe it's not the biggest show ever, and that's equality, because I don't think a big show is necessarily a good show. But I think it's the goodest show that appeared on the art world scene, and I'm very happy because it has this sense of freshness and this sense of the double life of the hand of Lucio Fontana. There's a very at the beginning when I started to study. And of course, I was acquainted with Fontana work since a while, but I thought about a work on Alighiero Boetti, which we all know as the work that is drawing with the two hands backwards, the left and the right, writing a date. So I thought that Fontana, after a while I was studying his work, his drawing, his work on paper, was exactly like Boetti, fare e disfare.
This is the idea also that you wrote of the mano volante, which is flying hand in Fontana.
There's always a double. There's a double of these gentlemen writing and drawing. With the right hand, it was maybe abstract, and with the left hand, it was figurative. So you have this kind of double life together, contemporaneamente, at the same time. So you have this double life, and I think that the main goal of the Catalogue Raisonne is to get the people into this Fontana syncretism. The Fontana was extremely gifted. Nature gave him naturally a talent for art, drawing, sculpting, imagination, and also this idea of synthesis. So what I appreciate on your show is as soon as you step in your show, you discover this double way of Fontana thought. In 1957, Fontana had a very important moment of crisis, and he wrote in a letter to a friend, am I a sculptor? Am I a painter? Am I figurative, or am I spatialist? So I don't have an answer, and your show doesn't give an answer to that, but gives back to the public this incredible energy that both figurative and abstraction, Fontana was given to his work. So going back to your question, and both questions on Fontana 1946, 1948, 49 drawings, I think you'll see I've been choosing, even this one, I've been choosing some drawings chronologically in order to show you also the different qualities of the work. So this is apparently un ambiente spaziale. So these drawings were born as a studies for environment. So Fontana is talking about concetto spaziale since 1946, and he's drawing his first drawing on ambiente spaziale in 1947. So what we all know, and you showed the ambiente spaziale, Lampada di Wood, o Luce Nera, which is dated in 1949, is, I think, the upheaval and the arrival of all these studies. It's very important, and
this drawing is extremely interesting.
And it's very important because we have been calling these massive, I think, 1,150 pages books, not Catalogue Raisonne of drawing, but Catalogue Raisonne of works on paper, because, as you mentioned, Fontana was always experimenting. The first holes, the first slashes, first of every series on paper. And that's kind of amazing. What you saw before, and even this is a kind of a declaration, and it's very interesting about another element you showing in your show in Paris, which usually has never been used by Curator, which is irony. He said, I buchi, nessuna rivelazione, una forma intelligente per decorare, and then he slashes the intelligente, and he writes that una forma come un'altra. So nothing special, I think, was his goal.
Which was sometimes in Fontana's drawings you have, the drawing itself that could be a sketch or something that could be an exploration of space. So he used the white set of the paper as an ambiente spaziale itself. But what is interesting is his use of notes on the paper. So that's why in the exhibition that will be in Paris until the end of August, and for the one who didn't had the possibility to visit, I really recommend, because you get in and you pass through the different aspects, and you really can see how abstraction of the early 30s and then figuration and then ambiente spaziale can be together. But anyway, coming back to the notes on the drawings, this is something that Fontana used to do even in the paintings, no? Always on the back of the paintings, on the retro, you have his notes and dedication, and that could be interesting to see in relation to a Catalogue Raisonne of the drawings, is the use of words and comments of the artist on his own paintings is extremely interesting, also because Fontana belongs to a generation. He was not even of the Novecento. He was born in 1899. But at a certain point in Italy, where he did most part of his career, he was very close also to other artists of the scene. And I would like Luca to introduce a little bit this, like the use of words in the drawings, the use of words in Fontana's thought, and the use of drawing as an instrument of thinking was common to other artists. And we did the book launch of the Twombly Catalogue Raisonne of the drawings this week in Basel, and I was particularly interested in seeing some similarity. Obviously, Twombly in the 60s was extremely influenced, he saw Fontana's work, obviously. What do you think? What is the possible?
There's something, I'm playing the old one. There's something very important that I think the new generation of art critics and historians and the Paris show is telling all of us. Fontana is not an artist of the 50s. Fontana, in his 30s, was already considered in Italy, of course, the Italy of the 30s, a legend. So Persico or Morosini, two very important critics, art critics and architectural critics, were writing about the legend of Fontana in 1938-39. In 1940, you have the first book on his drawing. So I think it's very important to consider Fontana in the 50s already a master. So when in 1957 Fontana goes straight to the Galleria Apollinaire to see the Yves Klein show, and buys as the first Italian collector a monochrome bleu. He's an old master helping a young artist. So I think we have to switch a little bit the chronological point of view. Of course, Fontana is very important because of his 1949, 1950, 1951. As we see here, this is another incredible works on paper, and these are all studies for the environment for the Biennale in 1951. But we have to think of Fontana as a master, a young master in the 30s. So walking through the fair, I've been seeing that some old drawings, some old ceramics or sculptures, because Fontana says, I'm not a ceramist, I'm a sculptor, which is very important. And for somebody who's working in ceramics since the 30s, it's a main status. So, and at that point, when you see notes on the specialist drawings of Fontana, are very curious, because in some of the buchi or in some of the attese, tagli, you just have 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 little drawings together, and then you have a double X or a triple X.
You choose the possibility.
It goes like bene, or in some other, in Ogli or Venezia, it says fallo. Make it. So I'm together with Enrico Crispolti, which I have to thank, because he gave me the strength and the knowledge in order to go towards all these 6 years and more of work. And also he led me through his immense knowledge on Fontana. But I'm together with Enrico Crispolti when he says that the drawing is the heart, like Paolo Fossati also wrote, is the heart of Fontana work. So if you read something on Fontana's drawing, has a meaning, has a conceptual meaning, but also is a work in progress meaning. On the other hand, when you read something on the back of slashes, it's less conceptual. It's an everyday sentence. Like, I don't know, oggi vado a prendere il sole a Albisola, Paola mi ha fatto aspettare oggi, il Milan ha vinto un'altra partita. These are like thoughts that he has when he finished the work, and it's kind of a diary. And I think that's another point, but it's all by his flying ends. That's another point that I found. I think that Fontana has an extreme, happy, gifted facilities. I mean, is capable to work as a Baroque master too.
Also, another aspect that I wanted to share with the Choghakate is that when you have, I mean, the Catalogue Raisonne normally is an instrument, a scientific instrument for scholars, but even for collectors is extremely useful, because only reading a Catalogue Raisonne, going through the chronological order, going through the variazioni on the drawings, you can understand really well the work and the paintings. And that happened also for like the Catalogue Raisonne of Twombly that we presented. In that Fontana, we have 3 volumes, so with and that Luca told us 5,000 drawings, which is 5,700, which is a huge amount. I wanted to ask a specific question. How did you manage with the Fondazione to arrange this, and if the artist was already involved in the works of catalogation?
There was something very curious. Fontana, which I think I'm answering also to another question that I didn't answer before. Fontana wasn't using works on paper to show or to sell until the late 50s. So for Fontana, drawings were something almost private, very important to share with friends, to share with critics, but not for not for sale, not for showing, not for the galleries. So, and I think that's another point of comparison towards Twombly, which of course was using drawings and work of paper also as a finished work, which is a more complete work. So Fontana usually was working mainly on very poor paper, which was the normal sheet of paper usually for typing. So until the late 50s, no special paper, just everyday one. So another point was that some years, like 1939, Fontana maybe made 2 or 3 drawings. But then, for a project, he could be able to produce more than 150, 200 drawings just in a night. So it was kind of a,
That comes to the other point, which is related to the exhibition, is when Fontana had a long, all his life he had collaborative works with other artists, but also even with the ceramics, he was collaborating in Albisola. But obviously, the architectural collaboration were very important for him. So I would like you to introduce some aspects that were quite important for you, that you were interested in relation to the collaborative works of Fontana with architecture there.
I would like first to start with what said Luca Massimo about the private aspect of Fontana's drawings, especially regarding these figurative nudes he made in the 50s and in the 60s. And Fontana, at the end of his life, was saying, we don't know if it was ironical, but I think he wasn't so much ironical. He said, during the week, I'm doing cuts and slashed canvases, and on Sunday morning, I'm drawing some nudes with the model. I think it's quite interesting. It seems that he got this production, which was kind of a necessity. Like, I don't know if it was like leisure or also a way to regenerate his art. Because he was saying, like, the cuts doesn't just come like that. You need also to know to practice art and to have this technical knowledge to do good slashes. I think that's quite interesting, especially regarding what you said about these sentences in the back of the slashed canvases, which are very trivial, because the official title of these works are Concetto Spaziale, which is very metaphysical, very conceptual, very ambitious and serious. And when you compare this use of language in the titles with the special concept and compare it to the sentences in the back of the paintings, which are very trivial, as Luca Massimo said, like, oh, today it's raining in Milan, or now I'm tired, I'm going to bed. And we can find that hundreds of sentences. It's also interesting the way Fontana called himself his works, because that's the official title, like Concetto Spaziale Attesa or Concetto Spaziale Natura or anything else. And also the way he called in everyday life these works. Like, he called them my cuts, my holes, my balls. And also it's a very trivial and... Yeah, by eggs, which is really not ambitious. When you compare it to this word concetto spaziale. And I think it was also the aim of this show, and some of the texts of the Catalogue as mine, to show how Fontana's work is not something abstract and conceptual, even if it is at a certain stage, but it's also very physical, very materialistic, and also sensual work. Now that I've said that, I'm going back to architecture, because there have been many studies on architecture, because Fontana collaborated from the 30s until the early 60s to architectural projects for various commissions, like Architectures in the City or temporary exhibitions. And so we made a room in the exhibition dedicated to his collaboration with architects. My idea of that room was, I was thinking, okay, it's so boring to go to architecture exhibition, sorry for architects, but it's always like having these small papers in vitrinas and small photographs of sketches, which might be a little bit boring, especially in an exhibition of Fontana with just such a visual and sensual orgasm just going through the works. I thought, okay, I don't want to just break that pleasure with introducing some small projects on small, tiny pieces of paper. That's why I wanted to have only projects where still existed the modello, so it gives quite an idea of the physical aspect of that collaboration. And we have in the exhibition a tomb Fontana made for the cemetery of Milan. And as Luca Massimo was saying, that there's a change of taste regarding Fontana, because when I met some older people in Italy who are 80, 90 years old, they were saying, oh, no, don't talk about the tombs in the cemetery. It's just something he made for money. It's something aside his real work. But I think in my generation and maybe some older generation, we also think that these works are truly related to his other works, more official ones.
This is extremely interesting, and we will go through details of architectural, which are maybe not, even too complicated. But I wanted to ask also to Luca Massimo in relation to architecture is different aspects of the drawings of Fontana. We have mentioned this partialism, the way he used drawing to choose maybe a project, the way he collaborates with architects, and his incredible, not facilità, we say, but his incredible needs to go through the drawing, to use the drawing. And today, I mean, I see Massimo here, and the Galleria dello Scudo presented this year, and I have to say one of the most beautiful booth on Fontana with the Castengreve and all the other galleries that supported the work of Fontana since so many years. And now that we have it also in a museum, they can finally have also some, which is extremely important to realize that the work you have done has a feedback which is positive in general. But it's true that looking at the beautiful slashes or di nature, you will need to have the support of the drawings in order to understand the relation.
Well, there's something that when you were mentioning the Sunday nudes, it's very important because in your show, there's a hallway, and then you arrive to the Natura, then you make a left. At a certain point, you have those two little nudes, like a kind of with little dots on some parts of the bodies. They're kind of Rodenish nudes. I think it's very, I've been walking through the fair. Let's talk about Galleria dello Scudo Natura, and then put it in front of an arlecchino that I've been seeing around, or a crocifisso. So I think it's very important in my catalog too to understand that Fontana is not schizophrenic. Fontana is getting this incredible gifted life to work together in both directions. So I can hold and I can understand and I can show some drawings with figurative strength where the ink goes with the flying hands and the image is an arlecchino or a mask or a torero or a crucifixions or something. But at the same time, I have the strength of the nature. So I think the effort and the task of my catalog and your show is to be relaxed and finally think that an artist is great even if it has this double roots energy that comes out. So my goal, unfortunately, I couldn't do it in a book, but my goal would be to show a 90-50 figurative drawing and a 90-50 holes together and do this double language. You know, when you translate a language in the book, you make a left in English or a right in your own language. I wish I could have been going through like this, and it's incredible because you have these radical, incredible effects. And also we have to understand that architect always loved, I'm always saying that architect saved Lucio Fontana, because our critics still, they're saying, oh, I love Fontana with the white slashes. I don't understand the Baroque thing. So, but the architect have a third eye. So the architect, because of those drawings, can understand the third dimension of Fontana drawings.
Coming back
and
to
that's
this
the thing.
interpretation
and I think it's very important. I've always been working with architects, and even in my show on New York and Venice, the first one to understood the works, the oils on Venice were architects.
Of course, and to come back to a specific episode on Fontana's life, and to mention what Luca Massimo just said, that there was this monograph just dedicated to Fontana by White, which is pointing out this kind of contradiction. Because for American, it was difficult since the very beginning to understand the Baroque aspects of Fontana. So we can come back to this section of the exhibition with the paintings of Venezia that he presented in New York. And I will say that even at that moment, I mean, Fontana always had great admirer from especially collectors, but important collectors, because one of the people who bought one of these pieces was an architect, Philip Johnson, in New York. And then the critics was cruel against him. So there was always this aspect that he was considered a kitsch Italian, Argentinian, not totally accepted in the United States, which happened also to Twombly in that period. And now it will be extremely interesting. I'm thinking about the beautiful exhibition that we had the possibility to admire at the Kunstmuseum here about Malevich. And going out from that kind of exhibition, when you see a small but very well-chosen number of drawings, you understand the artist. And in that relation, I would like to maybe to close and before asking other question, in the evolution of Fontana, the use of drawings goes from spatialism to abstraction, to the drawings for the sculptures for Albisola, and then in the last part of his life.
Just a second. There's one drawing that I've been choosing for this, and that's Figure. We're talking about 1930, 1932. I do think that few people, very little people knows what Fontana was doing in that age, and he was already doing graffiti on stucco or on concrete. These are incredible drawings that Fontana did in 1937, 8, and 9. For Tullio d'Albisola was the first. So we have to go back on the idea of the flying hands. You were talking about Russian avant-garde. I think the next drawing, you'll see a dedication to Filippo Tommaso Marinetti. So we don't have to forget that Fontana is related with that part, with futurism, with this kind of optimistic energy on the future. And I think Fontana would be happy to see how contemporary art developed, because of course what we see is just his thought. So going back on the Martha Jackson show, Martha Jackson, which was also representing, there you go, and that's dedicated to Marinetti. So it's also a dedication to his theoretical route, not artistical route. Philip Johnson not only bought drawings, he also gave it as a gift to the MoMA, the first ever accessed to the collection of MoMA, but also he bought a Natura and an Olio. So architects again. And he was Philip Johnson to take Fontana up on the Mies van der Rohe building, the Seagram building. So I think architects were always kind of a step ahead. But also in 1977, when they had their own show at the Guggenheim, the press wasn't so friendly with Fontana. So there's a kind of a misunderstanding again, it was, to consider Fontana somebody just kind of came out in the 50s. So at that point, Americans were thinking that Fontana was a late Neo-Dada.
His use of color has been criticized and misunderstood
use the
a
color.
lot.
And of course, if you don't think about Fontana in 1934 at the Galleria del Milione, if you don't think about his work in concrete, completely monochrome in 1933, then of course, if you just think of Fontana from 1955 or 1959, then of course is somebody that is trying to destroy a canvas, which is not at all the Fontana aim.
And another question that I have for Choghakate is that coming back to the Musée d'Art Moderne beautiful exhibition, I had in mind, the Musée d'Art Moderne has done a beautiful De Chirico retrospective before the Fontana, and which gives, proper homage to this maestro. And I think that the last section of the Fontana with the idea of the teatrini could also be related. And if you look at the quality of the drawing in Fontana, it could be from a very, very, I mean, this is maybe something that you can see sometimes a sign which is, in my opinion, maybe I'm wrong, very close to the De Chirico, which was an absolutely maestro of drawing. And in a way, I would like to ask you the relationship about this last production and the idea of disegno of teatrini in De Chirico and then to Massimo, because I think it's an interesting for the audience.
It's a very good question, and I think it goes to the general artistic direction of the Musée d'Art Moderne. I mean, the director Fabrice got always said that for the modern, because we always do contemporary and modern exhibition, but for the modern exhibition, he always said that we have to rediscover major masters of the century. Some masters that we think we know, but actually we don't, like Giorgio De Chirico, who was, for most of the people, a master who stopped in the 20s. And all the late work with the remakes of the Metaphysica or the Baroque paintings were considered as really bad paintings. And the idea of this retrospective was also to rediscover the master in his whole creative career. And I think that's why, as a creator, I always think that the retrospective is the best formula for an exhibition, because many people say, why a retrospective and why doing this chronological display? I actually think that for Fontana or Chirico, the chronological display is actually the most, the edgiest, because it's the best way to show how he does several things at the same time. He goes to a style, then changes, then goes back, goes forward. And I think that's also something very important. The other thing about the teatrini, I think it's one of the most difficult part of Fontana, because it's real difficult to understand, especially as they're huge works. They're also almost architectural works. And I would like to introduce with the teatrini the way that Fontana himself presented his works. When you look at the photographs made in the 50s or in the 60s of his works, they're done in a very strange way, because they're rarely put on a white wall, or they're generally put on a wall which has many scratches and other motifs. So he kind of likes to integrate the works in environments. He put his Natura series on the grass. He also uses some very violent lighting to show the works, especially on the Pietre series, where there are the stones on the canvas. He uses some lateral light to show these big shadows on the work. So I think that's one important part, also quite related to, might be related to architecture, because he always uses this environmental display.
Very fast, I think it's last 5 minutes, and then we can leave them alive anyway. I've been curating, I'm talking about me, but I mean, that's the art critic world. A show on Teatrini in 1997. I was so pleased to see in your show how the Teatrini were treated, because I think Fontana, it's still to be discovered. So I'm very happy when I see here a lot of Baroque sculptures and ceramics that would never show up maybe 8 years ago. I'm very happy to see the birth of some teatrini sneaking in with big names and big important works. So I think there's a very depth signification on teatrini. Fontana, it's somebody who is already in his late 60s. He's 65 or 64 when he started. And of course, he feels the energy of the new generation. Fontana has been saluted as a father to the all Zero group, the Azimuth kids, and the Nouveau Réaliste. So Fontana is already an old master where, all these Klein and the young, Dutch or German or French kids are looking towards. I'm thinking about Azimuth, the only artist which has a page on the Azimuth magazine is Fontana. So at this point in the 60s, he's completely generously, I think, actually together, living together and working together with these new generation, going towards the monochromische Malerei, towards the ambiente in Foligno. So, and he's leaving the new generation. So I think with the Teatrini, he feels also this new energy of kind of not handmade architectural
because
pop.
the only part of Fontana's work was realized totally by others on his
well, even
drawings.
the Elisi are drawing by the others. I mean, I've done by others, but I think that's very contemporary. Going back on what you were saying, which I think is very important and makes Fontana contemporary, is also the relation, the very difficult relation Fontana has with photography. I see these gentlemen working pretty hard on us, so thank you. But which is a theme. It's very important, Tim, and you show it a little in your show to in a certain point, is the theme that always sculptor had with photography. Let's think about Brancusi, let's think about Medardo Rosso, let's think of all sculptors. They do have a very difficult relation with photography. So Fontana, since the beginning, used very strong lights in order to photograph his work. And some of the work you have been seeing, especially from 1950 to 1955, it's very interesting to see vintage catalogues, because most of the works were used with light beyond. And also some of the works, again, Scudo has a very little one, very interesting. He was pierced not from the front, but from the back. Till 1954. So he was using also a special, very direct light in order to have shadows on the canvases. So the first halls are made to do a television program in 1951, and it is a projection of light through the halls, and the projection and turning the concetto spaziale against the wall, and to film with the TV the shadows and the light in order to have the new contemporary work, which would be in all the houses all over the world at the same time. And that's the Manifesto Tecnico Spaziale della Televisione in May 1952. So television was arriving in 1954.
So this is extremely interesting. And then I will leave some time if you have any question, because what I would like to say is to thank all the audience, and but also all the galleries who supported us in such an amazing way, with an incredible quality of the work, because that's what we admired during Art Basel, and this is quite exceptional, because the works that we had the possibility to see were in relation with these drawings that I personally hope to see once also in Unlimited, because my personal attitude is that the drawings is the idea, like in Leonardo, that could be unlimited more than any other medium. So if you have any question, I would be very happy to pass it to Luca, Massimo, or Choghakate.
Thank you very much. The book is heavy, doesn't travel, but he's here in spirit. Yeah. So thank you for coming, and thank you to you like, for your
you can find
show.
it at Schirà, and it's a fantastic instrument that each collector could have, and we help him a lot. Thank you very much for being here.